On America This Week, it's a Republican National Convention that will go down in history.
Every day, let us remember that we are one nation under God, and we need to cherish one another.
Our family went from cotton to Congress in one lifetime.
Mr. Vice President, look at me. I am black. We are not all the same, sir. I am not in chains.
Tonight, hear from the Vice President of the Trump Organization and the President's son, Eric Trump, former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani, and 2020 Trump campaign advisor Corey Lewandowski. Plus, they went viral after they said they were just defending their home, and this week they spoke at the convention. I'm talking with the St. Louis couple who say they were just exercising their Second Amendment rights. Plus, our special panel discusses the big moments as the party celebrates the man they hope will lead the country for 4 more years.
4 more years! 4 more years! 4 more years!
Now, if you want to really drive him crazy, you say 12 more years.
That's all ahead on America This Week. We're now some 60 days away from the election, and this week the GOP came out in full force to rally behind the president during his historic Republican National Convention. Tonight, we're bringing you the big moments with a slew of guests you'll only see right here on America This Week. So buckle up, things are about to get interesting. As the once every 4-year convention season winds down, I thought we should go over a few things before we begin the final stretch in the race for the presidency. Last week, the Dems made it clear how they plan to win. They used the DNC stage to highlight what they see as their biggest strength, Joe Biden's empathy. They reminded us over and over again their candidate is empathetic.
So Joe knows the anguish of sitting at a table with an empty chair. Joe knows what it's like to struggle.
Joe knows. They're clearly trying to show Biden as the anti-Trump. They portrayed Trump as cold, self-dealing, and ineffective as a leader. There was little, if any, policy mentioned during the whole week-long convention. It was a lot of Joe's a nice guy, Joe's had a tough life, and even more, Joe's not Trump. That's what experienced campaign advisors do when their candidate lacks the it factor, that ability to grab the attention of the audience and therefore the voters. They play to the emotional side of their guy or gal. I would sum up the Dems' platform as running more against Trump than for Joe Biden. And the message was, if you vote for Trump, America is going down a dark path. Now, personally, if I were running their campaign, I would try to highlight how America under President Biden would prosper and remain the most powerful nation in the world. But hey, I'm not running their horse. They know what Biden can and can't do, I guess. Then it was the Republicans' turn, and we saw a very different convention. This wasn't all about the candidate. Sure, Trump made appearances throughout the convention, but it was Trump policy that was the star of the Republican show, not necessarily the candidate. Night after night, we heard about the violence in the streets of Wisconsin, Portland, Seattle, Chicago, New York, and city after city. Trump and his speakers promised to stop the violence running rampant on Main Street, USA. Speaker after speaker asked, do you want more violence in the streets? Then vote for Joe.
It's almost like this election is shaping up to be church, work, and school versus rioting, looting, and vandalism. Or, in the words of Biden and the Democrats, peaceful protesting.
That's a fair assessment given the fact that there are almost 0 instances of either Joe Biden or Kamala Harris denouncing Antifa or any of the violent protesters. Check it out. Get back to me. 888-601-0032. Call me if you find one. I listen to all those messages, by the way. So Biden's campaign going forward will be likely America is in a, quote, dark place under Trump. A vote for Joe will save us from the darkness. After all, he's a nice guy. Conversely, Trump painted an optimistic future for America. Vote for Trump. Life is good. America is great. And since I'm the law enforcement candidate, speaking for Trump, I'll save your neighborhoods. It was a simple yet effective message given the riots and bloodshed on the news night after night. There's less than 10 weeks to go. Who do you think is ahead right now? Remember, the polls don't matter, not a bit. They're a crutch used by political pundits who are just too lazy to do analysis for themselves. In 2016, I called the presidential election for Trump from the very beginning. I saw what the polls weren't seeing. There was enthusiasm around candidate Trump. People wanted something different. They wanted a non-politician president. The pundits scoffed at me. The polls were telling them how wrong I was. This year's a tougher call, though. COVID has made it a bit difficult to read enthusiasm. However, I'll call it again for President Trump. Shocker, right? But guess what? I'm basing it on this time. It's certainly not the polls, and it's not even the candidate like last time. This time, I think people have had it with the violence in the streets. I also think America is sick and tired of the disrespect to our flag, to our national anthem, to our country that Biden, Harris, and the left seem to be afraid to denounce. I know Americans deep down are decent people. I think many Americans may be afraid to stand up for the flag and the anthem and to support law enforcement in public. They're afraid to be called racist, or they'll get pummeled by the social media cancel culture army, again, in public. But once they get into the voting booth and pull the curtain closed where no one can see where they're voting, who they're voting for, I believe decency, patriotism, and the desire to be safe will take over and draw them, you, to vote for Trump. Like the man or not, he'll protect what is America, what America's really all about: law and order, the right to protect our families, our businesses, and our property. Quick quiz as we head into the election. True or false? The candidate with the most votes counted is the winner. That's false. The candidate who reaches 270 electoral votes wins. In 2016, Hillary Clinton got 3 million votes more than Trump, but since Hillary won California and New York, she beat Trump in total votes. Trump won more states and therefore electoral votes to cement the win. Now, if you think that's odd or unfair, it's really not. Think of a baseball game. It doesn't matter which team has more hits during the game. It only matters who scores more runs. True or false? The presidential election is held every 4 years on the first Tuesday in November. False. It's held on the Tuesday following the first Monday in November. Did I get you? Finally, true or false, this will be one of the most important elections of our lifetime and will be a lot of fun to watch. Boom, that's true. Very, very true, my friends. So stay tuned. The GOP is rallying around behind President Trump and making its case for 4 more years. Speakers at the historic Republican National Convention have included everyone from lawmakers to family and to people with their own personal stories about the president's impact on their lives and our country. Tonight, Vice President Mike Pence takes the stage. Night 2 of the convention focused on America as the land of opportunity. But one speech is drawing some criticism. Sinclair National correspondent Atra Al-Nashar explains.
You're now fellow citizens of the greatest nation on the face of God's earth. Congratulations.
President Trump hosting the swearing in of 5 new American citizens, highlighting the theme of Night 2 of the RNC, America as the land of opportunity. Criminal justice reform also a focus of the night.
If you believe in criminal justice reform, there is only one president that passed the First Step Act.
In an unprecedented moment, John Ponder, a man who spent decades in and out of prison and has since started the program Hope for Prisoners, getting a pardon from President Trump.
I will continue to give all Americans, including former inmates, the best chance to build a new life and achieve their own American dream.
Also from the White House in the Rose Garden, First Lady Melania Trump reflecting on the past 4 years.
It seems like just yesterday that we were at our first convention.
Extra eyes were on the First Lady's every word because of the controversy 4 years ago when she was accused of plagiarizing a speech by former First Lady Michelle Obama.
Thank you for inspiring me. It is my greatest honor to serve you.
A shakeup in the lineup came when Marianne Mendoza, an advocate against drunk driving, retweeting a thread of anti-Semitic remarks from a QAnon conspiracy theorist. She later apologized. In a recorded speech from Jerusalem, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo boasting what he calls President Trump's America First agenda, though he says it may not always be popular with other countries.
This president has led bold initiatives in nearly every corner of the world.
But some taking issue with Pompeo making that speech when just last month he reportedly warned State Department employees against engaging in partisan political activity while abroad. Now, House Democrats say they're investigating Pompeo's speech. Texas Congressman Joaquin Castro says it may have been illegal.
Now, there was very little mention of the pandemic or of the double-digit unemployment rate last night. But tonight, we'll be hearing from Vice President Mike Pence, Second Lady Karen Pence, 5 members of Congress, and Counselor to the President Kellyanne Conway, who recently announced she'll be stepping down from her White House position at the end of the month. For America This Week, I'm Atrel Mashar.
In the view of the radical Democrats, America is the source of the world's problems. As a result, they believe the only path forward is to erase history and forget the past. They want to destroy the monuments of our forefathers. They want to disrespect our flag, burn the stars and stripes that represent patriotism and the American dream. They want to disrespect our national anthem by taking a knee while our armed forces lay down their lives every day to protect our freedom.
Eric Trump laid out what he says are threats from Democrats against the freedoms of our nation during his speech this week at the Republican National Convention. And he joins me now. Eric, thank you for joining us. Look, let's do big picture here. Let's talk about the comparison of the Democrats last week and the Republican message this week. Tell us what's different.
Well, Democrats apologize for the greatness of America. They are a party that has swamp creatures. They've literally been there for, take Nancy Pelosi and take Joe Biden together. They've been in government for almost, 100 years. It's kind of an amazing thing to say, right? You look at our message on the other hand, right? It's a message that loves America, loves law enforcement, loves red, white, and blue, is unapologetic for the greatness of this great country. It's just a different message, Eric. And again, the Democrats are not the party of JFK anymore. This is a seriously radical party. I mean, Joe Biden wants to increase taxes by $4 trillion. They want to defund police. Kamala Harris, she was the author of the Green New Deal, but she's the one that came out and called ICE agents Gestapo and the KKK. I mean, these people are unrecognizable to Americans. And by the way, the most shocking thing, Eric, and I'll just kind of finish with this, is the people that they put up on stage at the DNC are the most unrelatable of those people. They are the people who have literally been the cause of this nation's problems, in kind of the White Halls of Washington, D.C. for the last, 4 or 5 decades. And they think that they're going to relate to the people of this country. And, we're very different. We have, everyday American speaking people who escaped communism and socialism. We had people who fished for lobsters because my father saved that industry in Maine. You saw what the tariffs were doing, the EU was doing to that industry, and so much more. You have real Americans on our stage, and we should be very proud of that.
That was one of the most stark contrasts that I saw. Every night of the DNC, they opened with the Hollywood elite. They talked, whomever it was, and then the difference being that you guys, the Republicans, were talking to real people, talking to Lobster Man. I mean, Lobster Man was just, gee, where did that come from? That was fantastic. It struck me also during the Democrat convention that they didn't bring any policy forward. It was all, Joe Biden's a great guy. He's got empathy. He's got compassion. He's had a tough life. What is the policy message from the Trump campaign and the Trump convention?
They didn't have any policy, Eric. I mean, they didn't have policy, and they don't have policy. They don't know what they stand, because there's so many different factions of the party. You have the socialist faction of the party, and then you have this faction of the party, and then you've got a little bit more centrist faction of the party, and they're all kind of at war. I mean, listen, my father's, message is very, very simple. He wants the greatest economy in the world. He wants the strongest military in the world. He wants school choice, right? He wants peace in the Middle East. He wants to take care of our veterans. He wants to take care of law enforcement. He wants the best equipment. He wants the Space Force, right? I mean, he wants technological innovation in terms of being able to defend our country from foes, the Chinas. He wants to be not ripped off by all the other countries in the world that have been ripping us off for years and years and years. China, Mexico, Vietnam, the European Union, right? I mean, that's what my father wants. And then he wants government to stay out of people's lives so they can live and they can love and they can enjoy and they can live the American dream. And that's polar opposite from who this other side is, who just apologizes to the world for America, who wants to increase your taxes, who wants to spend $90 trillion on the Green New Deal, taking care of China's environmental problems. And I mean, they don't even have a cohesive message. And by the way, you never saw an American flag behind any of those people in the DNC as they spoke. I mean, you know, many of those people had beach towels and crap behind it. It was unbelievable. And, you know, last night we had the most beautiful stage. It really represented the best of America. It was glamorous. It was beautiful. And I think, again, I just think the contrast between the messages, but also the contrast between just the stage and the messaging and God and red, white, and blue was just
yeah, that was omnipresent. I will give you that. You opened with God, and it was a theme throughout, and I think that may, well, I should say, it probably resonates with the base. You know, Eric, before just about a minute or so, you know, during the week, Melania made a speech, and the next day Bette Midler came out and made some nasty comments about Melania. Can you just weigh in on, you know, what is it with the Hollywood liberal elites that they'll actually attack family members for on a personal level? It just blows me away.
The littlest people are often the loudest, Eric. I mean, that's kind of what I've always noticed in life. The littlest people are the loudest, and you have, you know, Bette Midler, who, you know, criticized Melania, you know, for an accent. Yet Melania speaks 5 languages, and I guarantee you Bette Midler does not. You know, Melania has accomplished a lot more in her life than you know, she ever will. And you see how we're savagely attacked. I mean, Eric, you know our family better than anyone, and you see how my kids are attacked, and they're 1 and 3 respectively. I mean, they're savages on the other side. I mean, it's not everyone, but there are savages on the other side, and they know we're winning, and they know we have the right message, and they're desperate for a voice. And many of them are, quite frankly, like her, irrelevant at this point, and they want some notoriety and they want some fame, and they know if they say something outlandish, they'll probably make the papers and they'll probably be, you know, headlined on CNN, and it doesn't matter. I mean, America's so tuned out to Hollywood. They're so fake. They're phonies. I mean, their whole jobs, Eric, their whole jobs are acting. I mean, that's what these people do. They act. I mean, these aren't real people. And, you know, we're gonna beat them, and we'll have the final laugh. I promise you that. And my father will continue to make this country incredibly proud. All
right, we're gonna leave it there, Eric. I just want to point out that Melania Trump came on several stages with me talking about opioids around the country. We got so many calls thanking us that she was there because they had conversations with their children about the dangers of opioids, and likely Melania Trump saved lives. Bette Midler, I challenge you to show us one life you've ever saved. Anyway, Eric Trump, the Executive Vice President, Trump Organization, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Eric.
I'm joined by the former mayor of New York City and the president's personal attorney, and I will add, good friend of mine, Rudy Giuliani. Mr. Mayor, thank you for joining us. So, you know, first it was Seattle, then it was Portland, then it was Portland, then it's always been Chicago. I noticed that the Republicans want to make the case that don't defund the police, defend the police. What say you?
Well, sure, absolutely. And the thing I note about every one of the cities you mentioned is it's a Democrat-controlled city. Kenosha is now burning. New York City had a weekend of 45 shootings. Chicago had a weekend of 70 shootings, maybe 14 murders. I mean, the Democrat cities in America are either burning down or they're experiencing increases in crime at record levels because, in essence, the criminals have been given permission by the Democrat mayors.
Yeah,
There's no reason for a riot.
Let's talk about that.
I never had a riot. I was mayor of New York City for 8 years. I inherited a city that had 2,300 murders and 2 riots in the 4 years before I became mayor. Terrible riots, and I had none in 8 years.
Yeah, I got to tell you,
explain.
I'm going to tell this audience, I was living in New York City for the duration of the time that you were mayor, and you're 100% right. Here's what happens, and our audience needs to understand this. The mayors control the police department. If the mayor's office does not support the police department with whatever tactics they need to keep the peace on the street, in other words, they won't defend him if something goes wrong, then the police say, look, I want to do my job, but I don't have the mayor's office helping me out here, and that's when the violence starts. Am I right, Mr. Mayor?
Absolutely, 100%, because it's a risky job being a police officer. In doing your duty, it can be misconstrued, or you can make a mistake. And if you think the mayor's going to hang you out to dry, as these Democrat mayors do, look, the Democrat Party has declared war on the police. They didn't say one good word about them in the 4 days of their convention. They don't even mention their cities that are burning to the ground during their convention. Biden didn't mention it. Biden said that silence is assent. Well, he was silent about all the murders and rioting going on in Democrat cities. So, I don't know, people might think that he was encouraging it or at least approving it. He certainly didn't speak out against it. They are all bowing down to Black Lives Matter, which is a violent criminal group run by Marxists and funded by convicted terrorists. And nobody wants to say that because they're afraid of being called racist. Black Lives Matter doesn't give a damn about black lives. All it cares about is the 1 or 2 black lives they can exploit. They don't care about the 25 people that were killed in Chicago last weekend, or the 2 that were killed last night in New York, or the 2 that were killed in Kenosha because of the crazy rioting that's going on.
Well, let's talk about that for a second, Mr. Mayor. Let's talk about Kenosha. Glad you brought it up. First of all, I believe it's the professional agitators who are intertwining themselves within the peaceful protests of sometimes
Black Lives Matter and Antifa.
But let's talk about this Kenosha for a second. There are reports, and I'm going to do this carefully because they could be right, they could be wrong, but there are reports that some of the protesters, some of the rioters, some of the people causing the agitation in Kenosha, listen, I get it, protest, people are mad, I get it, but some of the violence, the anger that's happening are people coming up from Chicago who are Chicago agitators, moving to Kenosha, Wisconsin, a couple hours north, and creating mayhem on the streets there.
I have no doubt that's true. And I'm sure it's the Black Lives Matter and Antifa. They orchestrated the riots of several weeks ago, including the one in New York. The 5 or 6 days of rioting in New York was orchestrated by Black Lives Matter. It's a terrorist, a domestic terrorist group. And to have the National Football League and baseball and all these corporations donating money to it is outrageous. They're donating money to an organization that wants to kill police officers. They carry around signs saying, kill the police.
Can I just, I want to clarify this. Are you sure? Because the way I've seen this is that there is legitimate protest within the Black Lives Matter community. They're mad about what they see as systemic racism, and they've protested, for the very most part, peacefully. But I'm under the understanding that it's the Antifa groups that are coming and agitating into the Black Lives Matter.
No way. Black Lives Matter is a Marxist organization organized about 4 years ago by 3 women who are dedicated Marxists, trained Marxists, funded by a woman named Susan Rosenberg, who was a convicted terrorist who got 58 years in prison and was pardoned by crooked Clinton. It is, if you read their declaration of purposes, it wants to do away with private property. It wants to do away with marriages, nuclear marriage. They don't like husbands in particular. They want to do away with religion. They want to reclaim property. They want to be able to claim your house as reparations. They want blacks paid a salary for the rest of their lives, no one else. And they would like to do away with the police and the military. These are all in their statement of purposes. This is a revolutionary group. It is a group that hates America. It's a group that derides everything about America, from the man who founded us to our first president to the man who emancipated the slaves. Yeah. They burn our flag in order to make us hate our country, to try to make us think our country is hateful. There is nothing good about Black Lives Matter. Now, the saying itself, Black Lives Matter, well, of course Black Lives Matter. But then you got to say to yourself, well, so do white lives, and so do Hispanic lives, and so do blue lives, and how about all lives matter? Yeah. Isn't that a much better and unifying statement?
Right. Mr. Mayor, I ran out of time. I got to leave it there, and I certainly hope Black Lives Matter takes a listen, and if there is a bad faction with them, get rid of them, because under the Constitution, the First Amendment, peaceful protest.
They should be prosecuted.
Peaceful protest is protected. Let's get back to peaceful protest.
Absolutely. Peaceful protest is totally legitimate. The peaceful protest stopped about 5 weeks ago.
Mr. Mayor, Mayor Rudy Giuliani.
These are all violent riots now.
Mayor, thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you.
They're the St. Louis couple who went viral after they were caught on camera brandishing guns while protesters or rioters marched by their St. Louis home. Mark and Patricia McCloskey were also speakers this week at the RNC and join me now. Thank you so much for being here. Guys, I want to go through that night for our audience. This is a different audience than cable. This is broadcast across the country right now. We saw it. We saw the two of you on your front lawn. Patricia, let me start with you. Tell me what it took to get you out on your front lawn holding a firearm. What was it? What was your fear like? Just explain your emotions at the time.
Well, you have to have the background that St. Louis had been burning and being looted since for a month, since the day after the death. And so we had been burned and looted. The downtown had been burned and looted. We watched it constantly on our TV. We went downtown and we were shocked at how much was boarded up. We are 2 blocks, 3 blocks away from a nice little area where you have little shops and restaurants. And that area got also attacked days before this event. It was also boarded up. You couldn't go there anymore. And then we got news that they were coming to, not necessarily our street, but our street should be aware that there were going to be more protests and to be aware of them. Then that was supposed to be on Friday. In fact, they came on a Sunday afternoon, and when we didn't know it was going to happen at all, we heard a big commotion in the street, a big 6-lane street that's blocked off. That we're in a gated private community. We own our own streets. We own the gate. We own the walls. We own the sidewalks and the parking area, the park that's inside that area. Yep. And all of a sudden we heard a lot of noise from hundreds of people. There didn't seem to be any police associated with it. We were out on our porch just grilling, and suddenly there were people at the gate. It's an iron gate that is locked.
So I apologize. I don't mean to interrupt, but Mark, tell us what, at what point did you say, honey, let's go get our firearms? And, that's a big step to take. There's one calling cops, there's one locking your doors and getting inside, but another one to take your gun. What were you thinking?
In the real world, there wasn't really time to think. It was just a kind of a spontaneous reaction. When the crowd reached the gate, and we're talking hundreds of people coming in, falling over each other, folding the gate down, and then climbing over it and really coming in masse. I just ran into the house, got the rifle, came out. Patty went inside to call 911, and next thing I know, there she is out in the front yard with his pistol, which had been rendered inoperable in the past and was at the time. And I'm standing up on the edge of the porch with now no clean line of fire, and she's surrounded, and it was harrowing, but it was certainly not a matter of thinking, hey, should we make a decision to go inside and lock the doors? I mean, it was instantaneous. We've got to do this now, or our house will be burned, we will be killed, and that's the end of us.
I think there are probably millions of Americans watching going, what would I do in that position? Some would do the same thing you did. Some would do what you described earlier. Mark, first were you prepared to pull the trigger if need be?
Well, at some point, one of the people that was wearing body armor and was intentionally being menacing was getting closer and closer up the stairs towards us. And I leaned over to Patty and I said, look, if that guy moves any closer, I'm going to have to kill him. And I took the safety off the rifle. I was ready to do it. But she says, you're not killing anybody today. And I didn't. I mean, no shots were fired. It had the desired effect. Yeah. The crowd stayed at bay. Nobody got hurt. Nothing got broken except the gate. No paint was even spray painted. The Second Amendment did its trick. We displayed our weapons. People realized we were serious. They backed off.
No doubt. No doubt. That's what it's for, to protect one's private home, their family. Patricia, only about 30 seconds, so keep it tight here if you don't mind. Have you been, what's the aftermath? Have you been threatened, or are you getting a lot of support?
We've gotten a lot of support. After the convention yesterday, we had lots of threats. We had constant threats at the office, constant phone ringing, hanging up. But then we actually had to get the FBI and the police involved, and they're looking into these people because they were actual credible threats of...
All right. We're going to leave it right there. Mark and Patricia McCloskey, the St. Louis couple who defended their property with firearms. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Eric.
Straight ahead, he helped lead Trump's campaign 4 years ago and is back at it again. Corey Lewandowski is here. Stay with us.
There's still a lot of brush to clear out at the ranch, fences that need repair, and horses to ride. But I want you to know that if the fire's ever dim, I'll leave my phone number and address behind just in case you need a foot soldier.
America, one nation, from Florida to St. Louis to Seattle. America This Week, America's fastest growing political show, delivers facts, not falsehoods.
Well, there's a lot of misinformation out there, and I appreciate the opportunity to clear some of it up.
Hard-edged opinions.
We can no longer rely on China to be the primary producer of so many critical products that we need in a time of crisis.
Tough topic debates.
Has the mainstream media vetted Joe Biden the way they vetted others on the right?
I just believe that all women have the right to speak their truth and that those truths should also be investigated. The end, regardless of what political party they are a part of.
America This Week reveals the topics and issues that pulse throughout America. Fighting COVID-19.
We're working with every single state to be able to detect outbreaks before they spread into the community.
And the path forward.
Getting back to some degree of normality, that will come. We will get over this.
America This Week investigates chaos at the southern border.
Go, 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 go.
The poisoning of America.
It's in the soils, it's in the water, and it's in our blood.
Toxic chemicals linked to multiple cancers found in towns across America.
We were poisoned, and we are still poisoned.
Almost every day, there is a new community that is finding out that their water is contaminated.
America This Week relentlessly seeks the truth on your behalf.
I'm Eric Bolling. Join me for a fascinating look at America This Week.
There's one more important area where our president is right. He knows that political correctness and cancel culture are dangerous and just plain wrong.
Former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley talking about cancel culture during her speech at the RNC this week. Corey Lewandowski is a Trump 2020 senior advisor, also helped manage candidate Trump's 2016 campaign. I'd say he did a damn good job with that. Corey, thank you for being here. Ambassador Haley, Nikki Haley, Tim Scott, Herschel Walker, a Cuban, 100% Cuban American, and Lobster Man. Where'd you get Lobster Man?
You know, Eric, this convention this week is a huge contrast to what the Democrats did just last week. You know, we talked about the fact that America's best days are in front of her. We talked about the fact that this is a country of great opportunity. You have Lobster Man on there because you've got a president who understands the importance of every community, whether it's the Maine lobsters or it's the inner cities. We have shown over this convention that American heroes are the farmers from Wisconsin, the dairy farmers, the cattle farmers. And what did the Democrats do when they had the opportunity? They said, we don't care about you anymore. So this week has been very successful for the Republicans.
Talk to me about the cancel culture. It seemed to be an early theme throughout the RNC. You're taking on that's a tall order. This is a mob. This is almost like the mafia.
Well, Eric, what we've seen in the media is if you don't support what the far left agenda is, then they will cancel you. And we've seen it from individuals just trying to enjoy a meal outside at a restaurant where the Black Lives Matter people show up and chastise them and criticize them. So if you support the far left socialist policies, then you're left alone. But when you're a conservative and you do something that they don't like, which means you don't agree with their policies, they're out to cancel you. It's the woke culture. And somebody who stood up to that is that young man from Covington, Kentucky, who was chastised again for standing in front of the Lincoln Memorial with a Make America Great Again hat. The good news for that boy, and I don't have any insight to it, I think he's very rich today after the lawsuits he won.
You know, some of the commentary that came out after some of the speeches, and I think of that Nick Sandmann as well. There was a CNN, I believe he's a CNN contributor, who called him a snot-nosed kid. You know, I mean, this kid just beat CNN in a lawsuit. CNN had to settle with him. And then I think of Bette Midler, or with her comment about the First Lady. How rude and disrespectful can they be?
Eric, the American people are so tired of it, right? Look, the CNN guys can criticize this great kid from Covington, but the truth is he's the highest CNN paid employee all year is my guess. I bet you he's very happy today. Not only is he getting money out of those guys, my guess is he's going to win money from the Washington Post because the way they disparaged him. And look, as it relates to our great First Lady, talk about a fantastic speech that she delivered Talk about the fact that she has empathy that was shown. And for Bette Midler, a woman who could never hold a candle to the intellect of Melania Trump, to go out and criticize her, it's shameful, and it's everything that's wrong with the left.
Corey, you were there for 2016 for the run. You saw Hillary Clinton leading President Trump in all the battleground states. This week, 4 years ago, in fact, the week of August 25th, 4 years ago, it's even a wider lead for Joe Biden right now. What should people know about polls and what to expect going into the end? I already know what I think of it, but what do you say?
Eric, what we've seen was the pundits were wrong 4 years ago and Donald Trump defied the odds. The Democrats want to use these polls as a suppression device. They want to say, don't come out if you're a Republican. This race is over. The truth is, Joe Biden continues to hide in his basement because he can't answer the simple questions while Donald Trump continues to campaign. Not just every night during the convention, but then after the convention, he was immediately back on the road. And what is he doing? He's out asking for people's votes. He's reminding them of the promises that he made and the promise that he's kept. And he's going to continue to do that for the next 10 weeks of this election.
All right, Corey, I got it less than a minute or so, right about a minute. I know what it is. I do the math. I crunch the numbers like crazy with these elections, and I know what it is. I got the state circled. What state does Corey Lewandowski or the Trump campaign have circled as must win?
Look, the must-win state obviously is Michigan and Pennsylvania, but Eric, make a 1972 was the last time a Republican candidate for president won the state of Minnesota. We lost that state by 45,000 votes. That's my secret. Hey, Eric, don't tell anybody. It's my secret state this year, okay? My secret state is going to be Minnesota. We're going to win that state. It's going to be the first time since the 72 Nixon campaign that a Republican carried it. We're going to defy the odds. That's a winner in our column.
Right. Well, a Republican can't win without Pennsylvania, that's for sure. But my secret state, I'm going to circle it, secret state, North Carolina. Got to have North Carolina. It's going to be really tough one to win.
It's in the bank.
It's in the bank. Corey Lewandowski, appreciate your time as always. Good luck, my friend.
Thank you.
Coming up in our special coverage of the RNC, our panel takes a deeper look at the major moments of the convention. Join me in the fight against the killer destroying our neighborhoods and our families. Opioids are taking our most precious resource, our children, at an alarming rate again. I'm working with the U.S. Office of Drug Policy, and I've worked alongside First Lady Melania Trump, who has made fighting the opioid epidemic one of the pillars of her Be Best initiative. Please help me fight the drug lords who are supplying a deadly killer to our kids. I expose the drug cartels who use our land, our seas, and our skies, and our country to make billions of dollars poisoning our children. Make a donation to the Eric Chase Foundation, ericchasefoundation.org. 100% of the proceeds will go towards exposing the drug cartels. There's literally no better place to help than to help the ones most vulnerable. Now, last week, our top donor was Georgia, a small token of my gratitude, signed, sealed, and on its way.
United we stand, we never fall. This perilous fight, it takes one and all. Everyone stands, American strong. Strength by one equals strength by all. American values, American pride. Your neighbor needs you, each person, each time. We stand, Americans. United we stand. We stand, Americans. United we stand. Ready to help, ready to serve. It takes everyone with steady nerves. Everyone stands, American strong. Strength by one equals strength by all. American values, American pride. Your neighbor needs you, each person, each time. We stand, Americans. United we stand. We stand, Americans strong. City by city, state by state, town by town, stand American great. Everyone stands American strong when strength by one
When so often the headlines are filled with gossip, I want to take this moment to encourage the media to focus even more on the nation's drug crisis. This disease is one that affects everybody. It pays no attention to race, age, or socioeconomic status. Addiction has touched every part of our society in some way.
First Lady Melania Trump delivered one of the best speeches of the week, in my opinion, focusing on the opioid crisis, the fight against the coronavirus, and the racial division in our country. Let's bring in our panel. Paris Denard is the Senior Communications Advisor of Black Media Affairs for the RNC, former Governor of Maryland Bob Ehrlich, member of the President's National Security Education Board, host of America First on Salem Radio, and Sinclair Media contributor Dr. Sebastian Corca, and Sinclair political commentator Amisha Cross. Paris, let me start with you. It was billed as the secret weapon, Melania Trump's speech. How did she do?
Mrs. Trump was fantastic. I think this was probably the most significant and effective speech that she has given as her tenure as our First Lady. She spoke to every issue that was on the minds of American families: education, the opioid crisis, COVID-19, racial and civil unrest, the economy. And then she was able to personalize it, talking about the effectiveness of the leadership and the compassion and commitment of her husband, the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump. I thought she did a fantastic job, A+.
And Amisha, let's talk a little bit about what happened afterward. We've been talking about it. It's just driving me crazy that Bette Midler would come out and say something so nasty about the First Lady, just so nasty. Talk to us from the liberal point of view. What did Melania Trump bring to the convention?
This is going to be one of those rare occasions where I actually agree with Paris Denard. I think that Melania Trump was the highlight of the convention thus far. Before last night, I would have said that it was Nikki Haley and Tim Scott, but Melania came out and I think she surprised a lot of people. She not only showed empathy, she showed grace, she showed poise, she showed a level of concern. And as you know, she's been out from the opioid crisis for quite some time at this point. I think that last night she won some people over who might not have really felt close to her previously. And I think that she definitely brought a level of humanity to what seemed like a very vitriolic RNC thus far. She totally turned the page. She said that she wasn't going to be attacking the DNC or Democrats. And I don't think that she did within that speech. She pointed a vision, and I think that she came poised and ready to deliver a very strong message, and it hit well.
Mm-hmm. Bob, what do you think the juxtaposition between the delivery of the DNC and then the RNC this week? Your thoughts?
First of all, with regard to the speech, she did take some subtle shots, but she took the high ground, so I loved it. And secondly, First Ladies traditionally give safe talks, safe speeches. But she hit a lot of issues. So this was as much a policy speech, but it wasn't in her husband's MO. It was her MO. It was above the fray. It was, Jesus, a shame they take such cheap shots at us, but let's talk about some real issues here. So I thought it was a home run in that regard. With regard to the spirit of what's happening here, I mean, you couldn't have a greater dichotomy, light and darkness, quite frankly, pessimism and optimism. But again, Churchill said you can't throw stones at every barking dog. And the Democrats for 4 years have thrown stones at every barking dog. They've thrown stones at everything Trump related. They've thrown stones at the First Lady. And so as a result, their convention was pretty pessimistic, pretty negative. And it was not the sort of uplifting platform, uplifting message that we see from the Republican National Convention. Obviously, we're the incumbent. We want to talk about our record. That's to be expected. But the pessimism that characterized that convention is the reason I think there's not a whole lot of enthusiasm for Joe Biden on the stump.
You know, and Sebastian, let's talk about that enthusiasm. You know, I pointed out in the monologue that when you don't have a lot of enthusiasm for your candidate, you kind of talk about the empathy and the compassion and what the guy is like. He's a nice guy. Is that enough to get them over the hump to being an incumbent president?
Eric, I didn't come up with it. Somebody else did, but it's absolutely true. Nobody in America, none of the 330 million citizens of this nation wake up in the morning saying, yes, I'm going to vote for Joe Biden. It just doesn't happen. He's an old, white, senile figure of the establishment who's been in politics for 47 years. Nobody gets excited about that. People get excited about the most beautiful first lady ever giving her most substantive, her longest speech. And you said it, Eric. It was full of substance. It wasn't safe. It was policy oriented, whether it was opioids or whether it was the cancel culture. That is a speech that excites Americans. And in the rest of the evening, hearing from farmers, hearing from small businessmen, hearing from Black Americans who, thanks to the president's First Step policies, are turning their lives around after coming out of prison. That's what gets people excited. And people are going to be very excited in 68 days to vote for my boss, Donald Trump.
We only got one time around. We're going to bring this panel back, but I just want to point something out, Misha, and we'll get back to you after the break. But there was not much policy, if any, in the DNC, in the whole convention, the whole week of the convention. All we've heard is policy coming from the Trump campaign and the Trump convention. Now, you may not like that or you may love that. I'm not sure, but the voters are going to decide in about 70 days. We're going to take a quick break and bring this panel right back.
America, one nation, from Florida to St. Louis to Seattle. America This Week, America's fastest growing political show, delivers facts, not falsehoods.
Well, there's a lot of misinformation out there, and I appreciate the opportunity to clear some of it up.
Hard-edged opinions.
We can no longer rely on China to be the primary producer of so many critical products that we need at a time of crisis.
Tough topic debates.
Has the mainstream media vetted Joe Biden the way they vetted others on the right?
I just believe that all women have the right to speak their truth and that those truths should also be investigated. The end, regardless of what political party they are a part of.
America This Week reveals the topics and issues that pulse throughout America. Fighting COVID-19.
We're working with every single state to be able to detect outbreaks before they spread into the community.
And the path forward.
Getting back to some degree of normality, that will come. We will get over this.
America This Week investigates chaos at the southern border.
Go, 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 go.
The poisoning of America.
It's in the soils, it's in the water, and it's in our blood.
Toxic chemicals linked to multiple cancers found in towns across America.
We were poisoned, and we are still poisoned.
Almost every day, there is a new community that is finding out that their water is contaminated.
America This Week relentlessly seeks the truth on your behalf.
I'm Eric Bolling. Join me for a fascinating look at America This Week.
Our family went from cotton to Congress in one lifetime. And that's why I believe the next American century can be better than the last.
That was South Carolina Senator Tim Scott. I want to bring the panel back in. Amisha, the Democrats have always claimed to be the party of diversity. They've always decided that they own the race card. Did Senator Tim Scott, I believe Senator Tim Scott, that comment right there will live forever in the annals of history of speeches at conventions. Did Tim Scott deliver a knockout punch to the Democrats' ability to own the race card?
Well, I have a problem with the beginning of that question when it comes to owning the race card. I do think that Tim Scott delivered a very poignant and strong speech. I said that in the last segment. But when it comes to people like Tim Scott, people like Barack Obama, African-American males who've been able to rise above what we've seen in this nation in terms of systemic racism, that doesn't mean that it eradicates the fact that systemic racism exists. These are typically outliers. If the type of opportunity that was afforded to either of those men was afforded across the board to African-Americans, we would see starkly different results. I'm proud of Tim Scott, even though he is on the other side. I think he's a great guy. I think that he's a man of faith. I think he's somebody who stands by his principles. And of course, he delivered an amazing speech last night. But that's, well, 2 nights ago. But that speech does not eradicate a lot of the trials and tribulations we see African-American men going through in this country every single day.
Yeah, Paris, is that a fair assessment? Did this rewrite history in any way, shape, or form? What was the success or failure of Tim Scott's speech?
The success of Senator Tim Scott's speech is that it shows a counter argument to the Democratic notion that you have to be a black liberal to be successful in politics, or that's the only example that young black men have for political or civic leadership. Senator Tim Scott's legacy, his life, the arc of his family history is an amazing one. And I think back to my panelist's comment, if every black American was afforded the opportunity that President Barack Obama had and Senator Scott had, which comes to education and school choice and not being bound by bad schools because of your zip code, we would see more. It wouldn't just be, as she puts it, outliers. We would see more black achievement because the Democrats, Joe Biden, has vowed to eliminate charter schools. He's against school choice. And so we have to look at this in the totality of what President Trump and the Republican Party stands for. Senator Scott, Burgess Owens, who's speaking tonight, Clarence Henderson, who's speaking tonight, Jack Brewer, who's speaking tonight. These are not outliers. This is what the American greatness is all about, our story. It's an American story, it's a Republican story, it's the black American story, and it's a positive one, and we're not outliers.
Sebastian, Herschel Walker also spoke, and he talked about being friends with Donald Trump, the person before the president, for 35 years. And he said, would I be friends with someone who was racist for 35 years? Pretty effective, I thought. You as well?
Absolutely, one of the best. I mean, they're all knockout speeches. There wasn't a dud, whether it was Nick Sandman or whether it was the First Lady. But for me, I think the knockout punch when it comes to the exploitation of race came from the incredibly charismatic 32-year-old black Attorney General of Kentucky. When he spoke, when Cameron said yesterday, Mr. Biden, you don't get to tell me who I vote for because of my skin color. Why? Because that's racism. Absolutely incredible. And I'm sorry, Amisha, the idea that you are afforded opportunity in America, that somehow Senator Scott was afforded opportunity, that's not how America works. You work for your opportunity, and you can achieve anything if you are any color. You can even make it to the White House. So every speech, superlative, made the DNC look like some high school video project.
Bob, go ahead, weigh in on this. Your thoughts on how race is playing out on both sides, the DNC and the RNC.
It's giving me a break. There's so much black wealth in this country. I was governor of the state of Maryland. There's so much black wealth in the state of Maryland and this country. There's so many success stories, so many successful African-American business people and academics and athletes and you name it, surgeons and you name it. So I'm tired of this term outliers. I reject it.
Well, let's
again, I have to say this, that your first question was, does this trump the race card? Does it end the race card? You never end the race card if you're the Democratic Party. It's always their go-to page one in their playbook. They always trot it out. It doesn't matter what the facts are. It doesn't matter what Tim Scott says. It doesn't matter all this African-American success throughout the country, including, as I said, states such as Maryland. Mm-hmm. They'll always do it because they got nothing else. All they can say is we don't like charter schools, and we're going to pretend the president didn't actually move on criminal justice reform and HBCUs and everything else this president has done for part to this record.
I don't mean to interrupt, but I want to give Amisha last word. You got 30 seconds, Amisha, all yours.
Well, as the only person on this panel who's actually worked in leadership at charter schools, several charter schools, I can tell you that the school-to-prison pipeline is extrapolated very largely in charter schools. So when people tout them as the best thing ever, again, as someone who has worked in them, I would suggest you do your research. Civil rights violations in charter schools are higher than in any other school system in the country.
All right. We're going to leave it right there. The panel, thank you, Paris. Thank you, Amisha. Thank you, Sebastian. And thank you, Bob. I'm starting to weigh in, but we ran out of time. Thank you. We'll be back. Never miss an episode of America This Week. Just set your DVR. Go to facebook.com/America Bowling, all one word, for a complete list of times and cities. We're also putting all of our shows on YouTube. So if you missed a show or want to rewatch an interview, subscribe to our YouTube channel there.
I love those hockey moms. You know, they say the difference between a hockey mom and a pit bull? Lipstick.
United we stand, we never fall. This perilous fight, it takes one and all. Everyone stands, American strong. Strength by one equals strength by all. American values, American pride. Your neighbor needs you, each person, each time.
We stand, America.
United we stand.
We stand, America.
United we stand. Ready to help, ready to serve. It takes everyone with steady nerves. Everyone stands, American strong. Strength by one equals strength by all. American values, American pride. Your neighbor needs you, each person, each time.
We stand, America.
United we stand.
We stand, America strong.
City by city, state by state, town by town, stand American great. Everyone stands American strong. When strength by one equals strength by all. American values, American pride. Your neighbor needs you, each person, each time.
We stand, America.
United we stand.
We stand, America
United we stand.
You can watch America This Week wherever you are and wherever you go. Just download the Stir app to your smartphone, Roku, Apple TV, and other devices, and start getting 100% free TV. America This Week airs every Sunday at 9 a.m. and again at midnight on your local Stir City channel. That's Channel 1. That puts every show at your fingertips. Again, 100% free. Thanks for joining us for a special coverage of the RNC. For the record, we sent out yet another invite to the Biden-Harris campaign to be on tonight's show. Still no response. Crickets, as they say. Election day is less than 10 weeks away, and things are bound to only get more interesting and more heated. I'll be here every step of the way with you. Have a great night, everybody. See you all next week.
I believe that we need my husband's leadership now more than ever in order to bring us back once again to the greatest economy and the strongest country ever known. God bless you all, your families, and God bless the United States of America.